I think every man should read this book. I think it's for men of all ages, but particularly young men. I'm not particularly young. I'm nearly 30, but yeah, the 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 way in which he talks about, you know, how young men, boys essentially, are just thrown into being men as soon as you turn 16 or 16 to 18 in these very formative years. Your entire identity is based on how many girls you've been with, how much money you make. Can you drink? Do you drink? Do you play sports? What sports do you play? If you do you do drugs on the weekend? Like, these are all conflicts and internal battles that I reckon, not just men, but from this perspective and my own experience, is that I feel like men don't talk about it, and I feel like men struggle with it. And I think there's a topic in this book where Jordan says that, he thinks men feel more, and that's why we avoid talking about it, because it hurts so much, and we just would rather not admit it. And again, goes back to the topic of avoidance. I think I've definitely avoided difficult conversations and reflecting on myself, and a lot of us do it. And I think when you read this book, you sort of get that relief that it's not just you, and that's definitely what I got. And there's a quote that is in the Guardian, and it says, and I don't want to get into like Andrew Tate and the topic of misogyny and things like that, but it's very sort of relevant for my next point, is that at its best, this book serves as a welcome antidote to the misogynistic influence of Andrew Tate. And what Andrew Tate does is he gives this perception of what men should be and how men should act, and if you don't act like he acts, that's what's wrong with the world. And what Jordan Stevens done is counter that argument, and he's not saying be feminine or not be masculine. He talks about how it's a spectrum and that we move through it, and some days we might feel more masculine than we do feminine, and then other days vice versa, and that's okay. And it's this acceptance and this reflection that we need to have. And he talks about his experience with therapy and how shit had to change, and he confronted himself and confronted his beliefs. And there is a main topic of this book, and sort of the topic that caused him to change, arguably, and become this version of himself. And it's all centered, and it's not in chronological order, and I like that. I thought it was great the way he did it, and it moved and like yo-yoed, because it was all relevant. The way in which he paced it and delivered it just kept you hooked and kept you engaged.